Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of Finweek Money Matters. Remember that this is the show that helps you manage your finances. I'm Dumisho Greater. Coming up on the show today, we take a look at how one company is making money by getting clean drinking water from the atmosphere. Yes, that can be done. And we'll also take a look at Omnia Holdings and our punt of the week. And then we'll be joined by a panel of experts to discuss the outlook for the rand. But before we get into all of this, do remember that we welcome your comments and any feedback to moneymatters@abn360.com. But next up, let's take a look at that trend of the week. Getting access to clean drinking water is often a major challenge, particularly in remote areas of the continent. This is a challenge Cirrus Water Management has turned into a viable business by developing technology to tap high-quality water from the atmosphere. In studio with us to tell us how all of this works is Bruce Jones. He's a commercial director at Cirrus Water Management. Bruce, thanks for your time. Getting water from the atmosphere, clean water. How does this app work or this technology work?
Tumusha, thanks for having me on the show. What we do is, well, first of all, high quality drinking water comes from mostly bottled water. And a lot of the time the bottled water uses unsustainable sources. Whereas in the atmosphere, there's always a source of water vapor. There's always water vapor in the air, even in Johannesburg on a winter's day.
Really? I would think with all the pollution, I don't know, I heard of acid rain. How do you separate the good and the bad water?
What we do is we have a machine that sucks in air out of the atmosphere. And with that water vapor that's always in the air, what we do is we cool the air down to just below the dew point. The dew point is the point at which water vapor condenses into the liquid form or water. Mm-hmm. What we do is that once the water is condensed, it drops out the bottom of our machines, gets stored, and then goes through a very simple filtration process. We then pump it to where it's needed, which is typically into water coolers in an office environment, or kettles, urns, or even a very small bottling plant.
So what are the costs involved here? If you think of the unsustainable ways that you alluded to earlier, and I'd like to get a bit more a clearer picture on what you mean by that versus what you do and the costs there.
All right. What we do is there's obviously the capital cost of the machinery and then the operating costs as well. But we're lucky to have the support of one of the larger financial institutions, in which case you would be paying around about just over R2 per litre. Now, if you compare some of the bottled waters, the cheapest you're going to pay for bottled water is around about R2 a litre, going up to anywhere to R20 a litre. In fact, I was at a restaurant the other day where I paid R30.
Or if you're at the movies, it's around that amount too.
Correct. Yeah. So that is where we come in a lot cheaper. And once you've paid off your machinery, that cost drops to just over 70 cents a litre, which is a very small fraction of what other comparable quality bottled water costs.
So this is a machine that you can keep in your home, or is this just for purely industrial use?
It's a combination. We typically target the larger industrials of companies that are working remotely and don't have access to municipal water and municipal infrastructures, or that could include mining exploration companies, but also remote lodges, bush lodges and island lodges as well. We also provide that for domestic use in houses, in which case you'd be totally off the grid by not relying on broken or failing infrastructure and making sure that your family is kept healthy.
Interesting, this conversation of going off the grid. There's electricity, now there's water. Just another aspect though that I'd really like for us to touch on. How do you how's the uptake been in terms of people who've been using it now? Is it a relatively new concept here in South Africa? Just give us.
In South Africa, it's a relatively new concept. We are just breaking into the market, but where we have broken in, people love our technology. It means that they, as I said earlier, are off the grid and they have a constant and a high quality supply of drinking water. So the uptake has been good.
And competitors in the market, who else is doing this?
There's nobody locally that is doing it. There are overseas companies that manufacture, but nobody locally manufactures and supports the products like we do. We've designed the product specifically for these conditions, and we support it locally as well, and into the rest of Southern Africa.
So you mentioned that there are costs involved. Initially you would have a capital outlay. Just overall costs, if I was now thinking that I've got a bush lodge somewhere, how much is this going to set me back by?
Well, as I said, you can finance it, in which case it just stays in your operating expenses at R2 a litre to begin with. Or if you do want to buy a machine, our 100 litre a day module costs in the region of 130,000 Rand.
Bruce, thank you so much. Interesting things. You can get clean water from the atmosphere after all and get off the grid. Thanks so much to Bruce Jones. He's a commercial director at Cirrus Water Management. It's now time for us to look at our Finweek Punt of the Week. Omnia Holdings, which produces fertilizer, industrial chemicals and explosives for the mining sector, saw its share price rally after it released the solid annual results last month. The share is still down 22% over the past year. However, joining us from our Cape Town studios to discuss the outlook is for Omnia as Finweek contributor Moxima Gama. Moxima, thanks for your time. Last year, when we spoke about this particular counter, you were a bit bearish on it. Have you changed your mind?
Look, last year when I was bearish about it, it was just merely a warning that it was overextended. I mean, it wasn't, there was nothing wrong with Omnia per se. It was a solid company, had good results, but it just seemingly seemed like sentiment was now, felt it was overextended, so there was a correction due. So I was generally warning investors if they were looking to get into it, it probably wasn't the time. And it has seemingly dropped from there onwards to at least those 170 marks. So the call was, at least was spot on, but now it seems like things are reverting for Omnia.
The agricultural sector in particular is one that's been doing well, but pressure points still exist in the mining space.
Yeah, they have struggled a bit with that division of the company, and understandably so. I mean, mining has suffered a bit. It hasn't been functional because of strikes predominantly, but luckily they are well diversified, and they have that agricultural space. And we, being in Africa, have very fertile land to produce food for the world, yet alone the continent. So the results we saw last week actually did see that spike, but although I am pretty much turning a bit warm towards Omnia, it has to trade through at least the 180 or 177 levels to then see that substantial growth or embark on a new bull trend. If it continues to trade below that, it could just be a false break and reversal. So I am turning at least a bit bullish towards it, but I do need a bit more confirmation. And from there onwards, we could really see it rally back to its all-time high, and even, I mean, for the next 5 years, embark on a new bull trend. So the 180 mark would be the level, but alternatively, if it had to go below the 150 levels, then it would mean that's a false break, and it would then resume its bear trend and still correct. So it is pretty much a touch and go, but I think for the next 2 weeks it should give us a bit more direction, and that's when you could really go long, and even for the long term.
Moxima, in your opinion, who should be buying this particular stock? You did say agriculture is doing well, pressure points in the mining sector. You said it could do well in the next 5 years or so, so who should be buying it?
It should be along, because it has kind of corrected from being too expensive. So it does give you an opportunity to just get into the stock at reasonable prices and not like last year. So like I said, the 180 mark would be the level that you could then go along with all your might, with that potential upside to the 250 mark and even beyond. So from turning bearish, or from being bearish rather, I'm looking forward to some upside with Omnia.
Moxima, thanks so much. That was our Finweek contributor, Moxima Gama, telling us about the prospects for Omnia. We'll be back, and when we do come back, we'll have a special focus on the Rand and where is it set to go. We'll have a panel of experts in studio with us. Don't go away.